After a brutal car crash, I called my father and asked him to pick me up from the ER. He texted, "I'm at a tea lunch with your stepmom. Can't just leave." I replied, "Okay." What the police officer told him as they approached his table at the restaurant made him wish he hadn't left me waiting. Can you imagine being told to call an Uber while you're bleeding out in an emergency room, the words sent by your own father? That 11-word text wasn't just a betrayal. It was the spark that set fire to his entire empire, his reputation, and the daughter he never truly saw. And me? I was that daughter, lying there, wondering what the hell happened next. Hey everyone, I'm Caroline, I'm 28, and this isn't just a story about a car crash. It's about how that one terrible moment ripped away the illusion of family, and finally showed me who I was fighting for. This is how justice came, not in a courtroom, but in a ballroom, with 200 witnesses watching a man's choices finally catch up to him. The Irwin Holdings Tower, all 42 floors of it, speared the Seattle skyline, a glass monument to ambition. It was built on my grandfather's legacy, but honestly, for the last 5 years, it was built on my sweat. I was the unpaid senior architect, you know? The one hiding in plain sight, doing all the work while my father, Tyler Irwin, soaked up the glory. Just last Thursday evening, I was holed up in my corner office, the city lights blurring through my exhausted eyes. I was reviewing the final blueprints for our waterfront tower project. It was a huge deal, $15 million worth of architectural innovation that was gonna reshape Seattle's harbor. Then my gaze fell on a photo on my desk, Mom, Dad, and me at my college graduation. 5 years. 5 years since cancer stole her away, and 5 years since Tyler Irwin apparently forgot he had a daughter, not just an employee. My phone buzzed. Tyler flashed across the screen. "Caroline, sweetheart." His voice oozed that practiced warmth he reserved for clients. "About your birthday dinner tomorrow." I cut him off. I already knew. "Let me guess, Charlotte has another crisis?" There was a slight pause. "She's having a difficult time with the penthouse renovation delays. You understand, don't you? We'll reschedule." "We." The word stung, 1,000 times worse than the cancellation itself. This was the third birthday dinner he'd bailed on this year, the seventh important moment Charlotte's manufactured emergencies had stolen since their wedding 3 years ago. "Of course, Dad," I choked out, the words tasting like ash. "Charlotte needs you." Through my office glass, I watched the cleaning crew. They'd seen this dance before. Tyler parading my designs to the board as collaborative family efforts, while Charlotte whispered poison about nepotism, always pushing for fresh talent to replace me. I turned back to the waterfront files, entering my private encryption password. It was Mom's death date, a date Tyler had forgotten 2 years ago. In 36 hours, these blueprints would secure the biggest contract in company history. If only I'd known that in 36 hours, I'd be dying too. Everything might have been different. The next morning, I was at the office before sunrise, as always. An email made me pause. It was Tyler's official correspondence to the Waterfront Investment Group, dated November 10th, carbon copied to the entire board. It read, "Caroline Irwin serves as lead architect for the Waterfront Tower project. Her innovative designs and technical expertise are the cornerstone of our proposal. All final approvals must go through her authorization." I immediately screenshot it. That was a habit Marcus Coleman, our company's legal partner and my unofficial mentor, had drilled into me. "Document everything, Caroline," he'd warned. "Your father's memory becomes surprisingly selective when Charlotte whispers in his ear." My platinum security badge glinted as I swiped into the server room. Only 3 people had this clearance: Tyler, the CFO, and me. The irony wasn't lost on me. The nepotism hire Charlotte complained about was the only one who actually understood the technical infrastructure. That morning's board meeting was pure theater. Tyler presented my stress test calculations and sustainable design innovations while I sat silently, the beautiful daughter playing corporate ghost. The board members nodded, impressed, as Tyler explained, "Our vision. Not once did he acknowledge who'd spent 300 hours perfecting every angle. "Brilliant work, Tyler," praised Harrison Wells, our biggest investor. "This is why Irwin Holdings leads the industry." Charlotte, perched beside Tyler, squeezed his hand. "My husband's dedication to excellence is unmatched," she purred, her eyes finding mine across the room, a smirk playing on her lips. "Though I still think we should consider bringing in fresh perspectives, perhaps that firm from Portland?" Tyler's response would have mattered once. Now, I just noted the date and time in my phone. Another seed planted, another receipt collected. The pattern was so predictable, I could set my watch by it. 3 years of Charlotte's theatrical emergencies had trained me well. There was the migraine that conveniently erupted during my promotion review, needing Tyler to rush home. The anxiety attack that coincided with my presentation to Japanese investors, forcing Tyler to leave mid-meeting while I salvaged the deal alone. The suspicious food poisoning during my awards ceremony, sending Tyler racing to the ER where Charlotte made a miraculous recovery the moment they arrived. My coworkers had developed a silent language of sympathy. Janet from accounting would leave chocolate on my desk. Tom from engineering would just shake his head. Even the security guards started taking bets on which event Charlotte would sabotage next. "Your stepmother's having a rough time adjusting," Tyler had explained after the 5th incident. "She comes from humble beginnings. This world intimidates her." Humble beginnings? I'd Googled Charlotte Winters. Twice divorced, both times to older executives, both marriages ending just before prenups would expire. Her LinkedIn profile reinvented itself every few years: yoga instructor, life coach, interior designer, and now, magically, creative director at Irwin Holdings, despite never submitting a single design. That afternoon, she swept into my office without knocking, her perfume announcing her presence like a toxic cloud. "Caroline, darling," she cooed, examining her perfect nails. "Tyler and I were discussing the waterfront presentation. Perhaps someone with more stage presence should handle it. You understand, don't you? Some people are meant for the spotlight, others for the shadows." I kept typing, not trusting myself to look up. "The client specifically requested I present." She smiled. "Requests can be redirected. Tyler listens to me." She wasn't wrong about that. Marcus Coleman intercepted me at the elevator that evening, his expression grim behind his wire-rimmed glasses. At 62, he'd been with the company since before I was born. He was the only board member who'd known my mother personally. "Coffee," he suggested, though his tone made it clear it wasn't a request. 5 minutes later, we sat in the empty cafeteria. "Caroline, we need to discuss your position here. If this is about the Portland firm Charlotte keeps pushing," I began. "It's worse." He pulled out his phone, showing me an email thread I wasn't supposed to see. It was from Charlotte to a headhunting firm, looking for a senior architect. Immediate start. Must be willing to relocate from Portland. Current position holder will be transitioned out post-waterfront signing. My stomach dropped. "She's already recruiting my replacement." Marcus nodded. "Your father doesn't know yet, but he will soon. Charlotte's been planting seeds for months about your emotional instability since your mother's death, your inability to work with teams, your overdependence on family connections." Marcus slid a USB drive across the table. "Every email about your contributions, every design credit, every board acknowledgement. I've been backing them up." "Why?" I whispered, pocketing the drive. "Because your mother asked me to look out for you before she died. And because..." He hesitated. "I've seen this pattern before. Your father has a weakness for women who remind him he's powerful. Charlotte knows exactly which buttons to push. The waterfront deadline is in 48 hours. I said. They can't replace me before then." Marcus's expression darkened. "Caroline, after that contract is signed, what leverage do you have left?" I didn't answer because we both knew the truth. Absolutely none. Unless something changed dramatically. November 15th arrived, gray and drizzling, the Seattle sky perfectly matching my mood as I drove to the office at 7 a.m. The presentation materials, 300 pages of my life's work sat in the passenger seat. My phone buzzed at a red light. Tyler's text. Remember gala tomorrow night, 8 p.m. 4 seasons, but not attention-seeking. Charlotte will handle the family representation during speeches. You're there for technical support only. Don't overshadow her moment. Her moment at the contract signing for my project. I texted back a simple, understood, and noticed 3 missed calls from an unknown number. Probably another headhunter. Charlotte had sicked on me. I deleted the voicemails unheard. The rain intensified as I merged onto I-5. My wipers struggled. The radio droned about traffic delays, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying Marcus's warning. After tomorrow night's signing, I'd be expendable. Charlotte would have her victory. Tyler would have his contract. And I'd have what? A LinkedIn recommendation from the father who couldn't remember my birthday? My phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. Tyler again. Caroline, I need you to confirm the server passwords are updated. The clients want to review everything one final time before tomorrow. Already done, I replied, watching brake lights bloom red ahead of me. Only my badge can access the final files until the presentation. Good. Charlotte's nervous about tomorrow. Make sure everything's perfect. Of course, Charlotte was nervous. Her entire performance depended on my work. Dad, I said suddenly, after tomorrow, after the contract's signed, what happens to me? The pause told me everything. We'll discuss your future after the gala. The line went dead just as the 18-wheeler lost control. The truck jackknifed across 3 lanes like a writhing metal serpent. Its trailer swung towards my Accord with horrifying inevitability. Time dilated. I could see individual raindrops on my windshield, count the rivets on the approaching wall of the trailer, notice the terror in the truck driver's eyes as he fought for control. Impact. My car crumpled like paper. The passenger side caving inward as we spun. 1 rotation. The waterfront documents exploded across the interior like oversized confetti. 2 rotations. The windshield spiderwebbed, safety glass holding but obscuring everything. 3 rotations. My ribs snapped with a sound like breaking pencils. Each fracture a lightning bolt of agony. Then stillness, except for the rain drumming on what remained of my roof. Blood ran warm down my face, tasting of copper and confusion. My left arm wouldn't respond, hanging at an angle no arm should achieve. Each breath felt like swallowing glass, and I could hear a wet wheeze that must have been my lung protesting. Ma'am, can you hear me? A face appeared at my shattered window. Officer Hayes, Seattle PD, rain streaming off her hat. Don't move. Fire department's coming to cut you out. Can't breathe. I managed, panic rising with the blood in my throat. You're going to be okay, Officer Hayes said, though her expression suggested otherwise. She reached through the window, taking my good hand. What's your name? Caroline Irwin. Is there someone we can call? Family? My father. I gasped out Tyler's number. I watched her dial. 20 minutes. That's how long it took them to cut me free. Every second an eternity of rain and pain and metal screaming against metal. The paramedics moved with practiced urgency, rattling off medical terminology that all translated to one thing: this was bad. 3 broken ribs, possible punctured lung, definite concussion, internal bleeding likely. One said to Officer Hayes as they loaded me into the ambulance. She's lucky to be conscious. Hayes climbed in beside me. Your father didn't answer. Is there another number? I gave her his private cell, the one he always answered, reserved for Charlotte and important clients. As the ambulance doors closed, I heard her leaving a voicemail. Mr. Irwin, this is Officer Patricia Hayes with Seattle PD. Your daughter's been in a serious accident on I-5. She's being transported to Harborview Medical Center's trauma unit. Please come immediately. The siren wailed as we raced toward the hospital, and all I could think was, he'll come. Of course, he'll come. He has to come. The trauma bay at Harborview smelled of antiseptic and fear. They'd stabilized me, a chest tube for the punctured lung, 17 stitches across my forehead. Enough morphine to make the edges fuzzy, but not enough to stop the deeper ache of 3 broken ribs. Officer Hayes had stayed, which surprised me. She stood by the curtain, phone in hand. Your father still isn't answering. Is there another way to reach him? He's probably in a meeting. I moaned, each word an effort. The clock showed 11:47 a.m. Try texting. I watched her type, then wait. Nothing. At 12:15, I asked for my phone. My good hand shook as I dialed Tyler's number. It rang once, twice, then disconnected. He declined the call. Maybe he doesn't recognize the hospital number. The nurse offered kindly, adjusting my 4. I tried again. This time, it didn't even ring. Straight to voicemail. He turned off his phone rather than take my call. I'll text him, I said, fingers clumsy on the screen. Each letter took enormous effort. Dad, I'm in the ER. Car accident. Please come. The response came within 30 seconds. At important lunch with Charlotte, can't just leave. Call an Uber. The nurse read it over my shoulder. Her sharp intake of breath said everything. Did he just? Officer Hayes started, then stopped, professionalism warring with disbelief. I stared at the screen, reading those 11 words over and over, as if they might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Charlotte's monthly crisis. Lunch was more important than his daughter's actual crisis. There must be a misunderstanding, the nurse said. Should I call him? Explain the severity? No, I whispered, something crystallizing in my chest harder than my broken ribs. He made his choice perfectly clear. Officer Hayes studied me for a long moment. Is there anyone else? Anyone at all? Marcus Coleman, I said, from Irwin Holdings. But as she dialed, I wasn't thinking about Marcus. I was thinking about those waterfront files that only I could access. Marcus arrived within 20 minutes, his face pale as he took in the machinery keeping me stable. Jesus Christ, Caroline, he murmured. How bad? 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, grade 2 concussion, I recited mechanically. But apparently not bad enough to interrupt lunch. He'd already seen Tyler's text. Officer Hayes had shown him. Marcus couldn't explain it either. I'll call him myself, he said, reaching for his phone. Don't. The word came out sharper than intended. Just don't. My phone buzzed with work emails. The outside world oblivious to my condition. 14 messages from the development team. All variations of the same theme. Need final waterfront files for tomorrow's review. I looked at them, then at Marcus. What time is the gala tomorrow? 8 p.m. But Caroline, you can't possibly. The contract deadline is 5 p.m. tomorrow, I continued, my mind crystallizing despite the morphine. If the final files aren't submitted by then, it triggers the penalty clause. 30% of the contract value. That's $4.5 million. Only you can access them, Marcus said slowly, understanding dawning. Your badge, your passwords. Tyler's been texting, I said, showing him the screen. 6 messages in the past hour, escalating from professional to panicked. Need those files uploaded ASAP. Caroline, this is urgent. Stop being petty about lunch. Answer your phone. This is about the company, not personal issues. You're being unprofessional. I turned off my phone completely. The small power-down chime was oddly satisfying. Caroline, Marcus said carefully. You're angry. You're hurt, but destroying the company. I'm not destroying anything, I replied, settling back against the pillows despite the pain. I'm simply prioritizing my recovery. After all, I wouldn't want to interrupt anyone's important lunch plans. Marcus studied my face, then, surprisingly, he smiled. Your mother would be proud. By 6 p.m., Tyler had called me 23 times. Marcus sat in the visitor's chair, providing a play-by-play from his own phone as Tyler's messages grew increasingly unhinged. He says the IT team can't crack your password, Marcus reported. They've been trying for 3 hours. It's biometric and password combined. I said, adjusting my oxygen tube. Mom's death date plus my thumbprint. Even Tyler doesn't remember when she died anymore. Marcus's phone rang again. He put it on speaker at my nod. Marcus, where the hell is Caroline? Tyler's voice filled the room, tight with barely controlled panic. She's not answering anyone. She's indisposed, Marcus replied evenly. Indisposed? We have $15 million on the line. The clients are flying in tonight. Tell her to stop playing games and upload those goddamn files. In the background, Charlotte's voice chimed in. I told you she was unstable, Tyler. This is deliberate sabotage. I can't fire her until after she uploads the files. Tyler snapped back, the first time I'd ever heard him raise his voice to Charlotte. Then make her. Charlotte shrieked. Threaten her. Bribe her. I don't care. Do something. Tyler's voice dropped to desperation. Marcus, please. Whatever she wants. A raise, a promotion, a corner office. Just get her to respond. Have you considered, Marcus said slowly, that she might actually be unable to respond? That your text about calling an Uber might have been premature? Silence. Then, what text? What are you talking about? The one where you told your injured daughter to take an Uber from the emergency room. That's ridiculous. I would never. Muffled arguing, then Tyler again. I need to go, but Marcus, fix this. Whatever it takes. The call ended. Marcus looked at me. He doesn't even remember sending it. Voice emotion, angrier, disbelief, building resolve. Guys, we're getting to the intense part now. If you've ever felt like your family takes you for granted, or your hard work goes unrecognized, type Team Caroline in the comments. Let's see what desperate measures he tries next. Marcus returned the next morning, carrying coffee and a folder that made my chest tighten with more than just broken ribs. I did some digging last night, he said, settling into the chair. About your mother's last wishes. Mom's been gone 5 years, Marcus. Yes, but her attorney hasn't. He opened the folder, revealing documents I'd never seen. Elena wanted to divorce Tyler. Did you know that? The words hit harder than the truck had. What? 6 months before her diagnosis, she'd already filed preliminary papers, citing emotional abandonment and infidelity. Then the cancer came, and she reconsidered. Said she didn't want to leave you alone with him. I stared at the papers, my mother's signature bold and decisive. She stayed for me. She protected me. Marcus pulled out another document. She also left me something, a notarized statement about your contributions to the company, dated just before she died. She knew Tyler would try to sideline you eventually. Why didn't you tell me before? Because you weren't ready to hear it. You still had hope he'd choose you. He gestured to my hospital bed. I think that hope died yesterday at lunch. My phone, turned back on for medical updates, buzzed with a video message from Tyler. His haggard, desperate face filled the screen. Caroline, sweetheart. There's been a misunderstanding. I didn't realize you were seriously hurt. Charlotte told me it was minor. Please, the company needs you. I need you. Just upload the files, and we'll discuss everything after the gala. I promise. Behind him, Charlotte's reflection showed in a mirror, rolling her eyes. Let him sink, Marcus said quietly. Your mother would understand. I deleted the message without responding. Tell me about the gala security. Who's handling it? I asked. Marcus smiled slowly. Why do you ask? Just curious who might be working tomorrow night. While I lay in my hospital bed, Charlotte decided to take matters into her own manicured hands. The head nurse, Patricia, came to check my vitals at 2 p.m., an incredulous expression on her face. There's a very persistent woman in the lobby claiming to be your stepmother. She's demanding your personal belongings and saying you've been terminated from your position. Through the door's window, I could see Charlotte in full performance mode, gesticulating wildly at security, her bag swinging like a weapon. She's also, Patricia continued, trying to convince security that you're mentally unstable and stole company property. Should I call Officer Hayes? No, I said, an idea forming. Let her in, but stay close. Charlotte swept in like a designer tornado, her perfume overwhelming the antiseptic smell. She stopped short, seeing my injuries, the chest tube, the monitors, the spectacular bruising. My God! She breathed, then quickly recovered. Well, this is what happens when you drive recklessly. The truck driver ran a red light, I said calmly. The police report confirms it. She waved dismissively. Whatever. I need your company badge and passwords. You're being terminated for dereliction of duty. On whose authority? Mine. As creative director. You can't fire me, Charlotte. Check the corporate bylaws. Only the board can terminate a senior architect, and only with a 2/3 vote. Her face flushed. Then give me the files. The presentation is in 27 hours. I'm medically incapacitated. Doctor's orders. You're doing this on purpose. She stepped closer, voice dropping to a hiss. I know what you're playing at. You think you're irreplaceable? Well, I've already got your replacement lined up. Someone from Portland who actually appreciates opportunity. Then have them upload the files, I suggested sweetly. Her hand raised as if to slap me, but Patricia stepped forward. Ma'am, I need you to leave now. Charlotte stormed out, but not before delivering her parting shot. You just destroyed your own future, you pathetic little. The door cut off the rest. At 4 p.m., my phone exploded with messages from James Rodriguez, head of building security. Marcus had it on speaker as James's panic filled the room. Caroline, thank God! Charlotte Irwin just tried to override your security credentials, but the system locked me out. It says something about federal compliance protocols. I managed a small smile despite the pain. The waterfront project includes government subcontracts. My platinum badge is tied to federal security clearance. It can't be revoked without FBI notification and a formal investigation. Jesus, she's demanding I physically destroy your badge. Says Tyler authorized it. Did he? He's not answering his phone. He's been locked in his office for 3 hours. Caroline, the entire IT department is in meltdown. They've tried everything. The files are encrypted with something called AES-256 military-grade encryption. I confirmed that as part of the federal compliance requirements I implemented. I confirmed. Requirements that Charlotte called excessive paranoia in the last board meeting. James laughed bitterly. She's now screaming at the FBI field office on the phone, demanding they revoke your clearance immediately. They're not being helpful to her cause. In the background, I could hear Charlotte shrieking about national security and corporate espionage. James, I said, can you do me a favor? Send me the security footage of her trying to access my office. Already done. Also, Caroline, the Portland architect she's been courting? He just called, says he can't start for 3 weeks minimum, and he definitely can't crack military encryption. How unfortunate, I murmured. The board's called an emergency meeting for 5 p.m. James continued. They're discussing the penalty clause. $4.5 million due immediately if the files aren't submitted by tomorrow at 5. Tell them I'm indisposed, I said. Doctor's orders. Caroline, James said quietly. Good luck. We're all rooting for you. After he hung up, Marcus raised his coffee cup in a toast. Your mother's daughter through and through. Tyler arrived at 7 p.m., looking like he'd aged 5 years in one day. His usual perfect suit was wrinkled, his silver hair disheveled. He stood in my doorway holding a sad bouquet of grocery store flowers, the kind you grab desperately at the last minute. Caroline. His voice cracked. Sweetheart. I kept my eyes closed, listening to his expensive shoes shuffle on the linoleum. I know you're awake, he continued. The nurse said you've been conscious all day. Still, I didn't move. I'm sorry about the text. I didn't. Charlotte told me you just had a fender bender. She said you were being dramatic. My monitors betrayed me, my heart rate spiking at the excuse. Please, Caroline, the company, our family legacy. It's all at stake. The board is threatening to remove me as CEO if this deal falls through. Just tell me the password. You don't even have to come to the gala. Silence. I'll give you anything. Name your price. $1 million bonus. Your own division. Just please don't destroy everything we've built. We, as if he'd ever included me in that word before. He moved closer, and I finally opened my eyes. He actually startled at the sight of my face, the stitches, the bruising that had turned purple-black, the oxygen tube. My God, he whispered. You really could have died. Would you have left lunch for my funeral? I asked, my voice raspy. He flinched. That's not fair. Answered the question. Of course I would have. Liar. The word came out flat, emotionless. Charlotte would have had another crisis. Maybe her dress wouldn't fit right. Maybe the caterer would serve the wrong canapes, and you'd send flowers with a card saying sorry for your loss to your own daughter's funeral. Caroline! Get out. He left the flowers on the nightstand. They were already wilting. Officer Patricia Hayes returned at 8 p.m. with a coffee and a conspiratorial expression that made me sit up despite the pain. So, she said, settling into the visitor's chair, I've been thinking about your father. Join the club. No, I mean legally thinking. She pulled out her notebook. Refusing to assist someone in medical distress when you have the means to do so. It's not technically criminal, but it's definitely worth documenting, especially when that someone is your dependent. I'm 28, hardly a dependent. You're on his insurance. You work for his company. You were asking for help during a medical emergency. She tapped her pen. My sister went through something similar. Her ex-husband left her at the hospital during a miscarriage because his golf tournament was more important. The public shame was worse than any legal consequence could have been. I studied her face. What are you suggesting? The gala tomorrow night. Four Seasons Ballroom. 200 of Seattle's most influential people plus media coverage. She smiled. That's a lot of witnesses for a public safety announcement about emergency contact responsibilities. You'd do that, Caroline? I've been a cop for 15 years. I've seen every kind of family dysfunction imaginable, but a father who texts call an Uber to his dying daughter? She shook her head. That's a new low. Plus, it's technically my duty to follow up with emergency contacts who fail to respond appropriately. Tyler will have his lawyers. I'm not arresting him. I'm just delivering a public safety reminder about the importance of emergency contacts taking their responsibilities seriously. If he happens to be the example I use? Well, she shrugged. Educational moments can happen anywhere. The gala's at 8. He'll be at the head table with Charlotte and the board. Perfect. Maximum visibility. She stood to leave, then turned back. We're something memorable tomorrow night. If you're going to burn bridges, might as well do it in style. After she left, I called Marcus. I need a favor. Can you get me discharged by tomorrow afternoon? That's medically inadvisable. So was choosing lunch over my life. Get me out, Marcus. I have a gala to attend. Caroline, what are you planning? Justice, I said simply. The kind that comes with 200 witnesses. Voice emotion, calm, determined, satisfied, November 17th, 6 p.m. The Four Seasons ballroom glittered like a jewelry box, crystal chandeliers casting rainbow patterns across 200 place settings. I watched from across the street. Leaning heavily on a cane Marcus had procured, my ribs screaming despite the painkillers. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the organized chaos of final preparations. Tyler stood at the podium, rehearsing his speech about family values and building legacies together. Charlotte floated between tables in a gold Versace gown that probably cost more than most people's cars, playing the perfect corporate wife. The Waterfront Investment Group's CEO, David Chin, whom Tyler always called David Smith, to his face, the casual racism never quite hidden, paced near the bar, phone pressed to his ear, obviously agitated. My phone showed 53 missed calls from Tyler, 20 from Charlotte, and 1 text from the CFO. Board voted. If files aren't submitted by 8 p.m. tonight, you're terminated with cause, forfeiting all severance and benefits. 8 p.m., the exact moment Tyler would be mid-speech, celebrating a deal that didn't exist. Marcus appeared beside me, having parked the car. You sure about this? You can barely stand. I've stood for worse, I replied, adjusting the simple black sheath dress that hid most of my bandages. The visible bruises on my face and stitches across my forehead? Those I left uncovered. Battle scars deserve to be seen. Your badge? Marcus asked. I held up the platinum security card, the only key to $15 million. Inside, I could see reporters setting up cameras, Seattle Business Journal, TechCrunch, even a crew from KOMO News. Tyler had ensured maximum coverage for his triumph. Officer Hayes is already inside, Marcus reported. She's at the bar in full uniform. Good. What about the files? Marcus smiled. Safe in my office vault, ready whenever you decide to release them. I corrected. If I decide. We watched Charlotte tap a champagne flute, calling everyone to their seats. The show was about to begin. By 7:30, the ballroom's atmosphere had shifted from celebration to barely contained panic. Through the windows, I watched David Chin corner Tyler near the stage, his face red with fury. Marcus had his phone on speaker, connected to James from security, who was providing real-time updates. Chin just said if he doesn't see the final designs in 30 minutes, he's walking, James whispered. Tyler's promising they're coming, but his hands are shaking. Charlotte had stopped floating and started hunting, her phone pressed to her ear as she stalked between tables. I could read her lips. Find her. I don't care if she's dying. Find Caroline now! Board members huddled in corners, whispering. The reporters sensed blood in the water, cameras swinging toward every heated conversation. Tyler just tried to stall, James continued. Told everyone there's a minor technical delay with the file transfer. Chin called bullshit. Said either Tyler's lying or he's incompetent. At 7:45, Charlotte grabbed the microphone, her smile brittle as glass. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a small connectivity issue with our servers. Please enjoy the champagne while our IT team resolves this minor hiccup. Minor hiccup, I repeated, watching her mascara start to run from stress sweat. Is that what I am now? Tyler had moved to the corner, frantically typing on his phone. Another message appeared on my screen. Caroline, I'm begging you. Don't do this to the family. The family. Not to me. Not to us. To the family. That abstract concept he'd hidden behind for years. At 7:55, Chin stood up from his table, his entire investment team following suit. That's our cue, I told Marcus. We entered through the main doors, just as Chin declared, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is unacceptable, Tyler. If you can't deliver the basic files, how can we trust you with $15 million? Every head in the room turned toward the confrontation. Perfect timing. Officer Patricia Hayes moved through the crowd like a shark through water, her uniform parting the designer gowns and tuxedos effortlessly. Her partner, Officer Williams, flanked her as they approached the head table where Tyler stood frozen, champagne glass halfway to his lips. The room fell silent. 200 of Seattle's elite held their collective breath as Hayes stopped directly in front of my father. Mr. Tyler Owen. Her voice carried across the ballroom without need for a microphone. Yes? Tyler's voice cracked. Is there a problem, officer? I'm Officer Patricia Hayes, Seattle PD. I need to speak with you about your failure to respond to an emergency contact notification regarding your daughter, Caroline Irwin. Charlotte's face drained of color. This is a private event, ma'am. This is a public safety matter. Hayes pulled out her notebook, every gesture deliberate and visible to the watching crowd. Mr. Irwin, on November 15th, at 12:15 p.m., you were notified that your daughter was in critical condition at Harborview Medical Center following a severe vehicle collision. Is that correct? There was a misunderstanding. I have here. Hayes continued, now reading from her notes, loud enough for the reporters to hear. Your text response to your critically injured daughter, at important lunch with Charlotte. Can't just leave. Call an Uber. End quote. Gasps rippled through the room. Phones appeared, recording everything. Mr. Irwin, your daughter suffered 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a grade 2 concussion. She required emergency surgery. She could have died. Hayes let that sink in. And you told her to call an Uber. David Chin slowly set down his drink, his expression shifting from anger to pure disgust. This is ridiculous, Charlotte shrieked, grabbing Tyler's arm. She's being dramatic. It wasn't that serious. Ma'am. Officer Williams spoke for the first time, his voice firm. We have the medical records. We have the accident report. The truck driver has been charged with vehicular assault. This was nearly fatal. Tyler's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The cameras were all trained on him now, capturing every second of his humiliation. Furthermore, Hayes continued, we're here to remind everyone about the legal and moral obligations of emergency contacts. When someone lists you as their person to call in crisis, that's a responsibility you accept. Mr. Irwin, you failed that responsibility catastrophically. Where is Caroline? Someone called from the crowd. Is she okay? Hayes smiled grimly and gestured toward the entrance. Why don't you ask her yourself? Every head swiveled toward the doors where I stood, leaning on my cane, bandages visible, stitches prominent, bruises painting my face in shades of purple and yellow. The room erupted. David Chin was the first to move, rising from his chair with the controlled fury of a man who just discovered he'd been utterly deceived. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Tyler, you told me your daughter was handling the final preparations. You assured me everything was under control. He looked at me, taking in my injuries, then back at Tyler. She nearly died 3 days ago, and you didn't even mention it. David, I can explain. No. Chen raised his hand. I've seen enough. Waterfront Investment Group is terminating all negotiations with Irwin Holdings effective immediately. You can't. Tyler lunged forward, desperation cracking his composure. The contract. There is no contract, Chen said coldly. We haven't signed anything. And after witnessing this, he gestured to Officer Hayes, to me, to the entire mortifying scene. We never will. We don't do business with people who abandon their dying children for lunch. Charlotte tried to salvage the moment, her voice shrill. This is a family matter. It has nothing to do with business. Character is everything in business. Chin replied, then louder, addressing the room. If anyone else is considering partnerships with Irwin Holdings, I suggest you reconsider. A man who treats his daughter this way will treat your investments worse. Board member Harrison Wells stood next, his face grave. Tyler, we need to discuss this immediately. After the gala, Tyler started. Wells's tone broke no argument. Emergency board meeting. This room. 10 minutes. The media frenzy intensified. Reporters pushed forward, shouting questions. Mr. Irwin, how do you respond to these allegations? Caroline, what happened at the hospital? Is it true you chose lunch over your daughter's life? Then, from the back of the room, a man I didn't recognize stood up. Tall, distinguished, in his early 60s. I should probably introduce myself, he said, his voice carrying. I'm Robert Winters, Charlotte's second ex-husband. Charlotte went rigid. I came tonight because I heard she'd found another victim. Tyler, did she tell you why our marriage ended? It was because she faked a pregnancy to trap me, then faked a miscarriage to keep my sympathy. She's played this game before. Manufacturing crises to control wealthy men. That's slander. Charlotte screamed. It's documented in our divorce proceedings. Robert replied calmly. Public record, just like our prenup that she tried to break by claiming emotional distress from fake anxiety disorders. The room was in full meltdown now. Charlotte grabbed a champagne flute and threw it at Robert, missing widely. Security moved in, restraining her as she screamed obscenities. Tyler stood in the center of it all, his empire crumbling in real time, watching his wife being restrained, his board abandoning him, his reputation destroyed, and he still hadn't asked if I was okay. I moved through the parted crowd like Moses through the Red Sea, each step deliberate despite the searing pain in my ribs. Marcus walked beside me, ready to catch me if I faltered, but I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Not tonight. The contrast was intentional, Charlotte and her golden Versace, me in simple black. Her perfect makeup, my visible wounds. Her hysteria, my calm. I stopped 10 feet from Tyler, close enough for him to see the hospital bracelet still on my wrist, the deep bruising around my eyes, the way I gripped the cane with white knuckles. "Hello, Dad?" He flinched at the word. "Caroline, sweetheart, let me explain." "No." I held up my hand. "You've had 3 days to explain. You chose not to visit. You chose not to call. You chose not to care. So now I choose to speak." I turned to address the room, the reporter's cameras tracking my movement. "My name is Caroline Irwin. I was, the lead architect for the Waterfront Tower project. Every design, every calculation, every innovation you've seen presented as Irwin Holdings' work was mine." "That's preposterous." Tyler sputtered. "You're a junior." I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the ballroom's projection system, a feature I'd insisted on installing for presentations. The screen behind Tyler lit up with email after email, contract after contract, all bearing my name, my work, my digital signature. 5 years? I continued, my voice growing stronger. 5 years of carrying this company while my father took credit. 5 years of being told to stay quiet, be supportive, don't overshadow Charlotte. 5 years of choosing him, even as he consistently chose everyone else over me. The room was silent, except for the whir of cameras. "The waterfront files you're all waiting for? They're safe, encrypted with military-grade security that only I can access. The $15 million deal that was supposed to be signed tonight? It required those files by 8 p.m. I looked at my watch. It's 8:17. The deal is dead." Tyler's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair, the weight of the loss finally hitting him. "You destroyed us," he whispered. "You destroyed everything." "No, Dad." I set my platinum badge on the table in front of him. "You destroyed us the moment you chose lunch over my life. I just chose not to save you from the consequences." The board members were already gathering, their faces grim. Charlotte was being escorted out by security, still screaming threats, and Tyler sat alone at his table, surrounded by 200 witnesses to his downfall. Voice emotion, powerful, satisfied, reflective. Yes, friends, this is the moment Caroline finally took back her power. If you're watching this and feel inspired by her courage to stand up to toxic family members, please hit that like button and share this story. Type Team Caroline in the comments if you support her decision. Now, let's see what happens when Charlotte and Tyler face the full consequences of their choices. I walked slowly to the podium, each step measured, letting the pain show just enough to remind everyone why we were here. The microphone picked up my slightly labored breathing. Punctured lungs tend to do that. "Since I have your attention," I began, "let me tell you about Irwin Holdings' real foundation." The projection screen cycled through my designs, not just the waterfront, but everything. The Cascade complex that won Tyler his first major award. The Belltown towers that established our reputation. The sustainable designs that landed U.S. government contracts. Every project that built this company's reputation over the last 5 years, I said, clicking through slide after slide, was designed primarily by me. Here's the metadata proving creation dates. Here are the server logs showing who actually did the work. Here are the emails where Tyler explicitly acknowledges my role, before presenting my work as his own to clients. "You ungrateful." Tyler started to rise. "Sit down, Dad." My voice carried an edge I'd never used with him before. He sat. "I'm not ungrateful. I'm done being grateful for scraps from my own table. Charlotte." I looked at her, being held by security. You wanted me gone? Congratulations. I submitted my resignation to the board 5 minutes ago, effective immediately. Gasps from the board members. Wells looked stricken. Caroline, surely we can. I've already accepted a position with Meridian Development, I announced, naming Owen Holdings' biggest competitor, as senior partner with full equity participation. They value architects who actually design buildings, not just take credit for them. You can't. Tyler exploded. The non-compete clause doesn't apply when termination is constructive dismissal. Marcus spoke from his position near the board table. Failing to provide a safe working environment, systematic credit theft, and allowing workplace harassment all void that clause. I should know. I wrote it. I clicked to the final slide. A photo of my mother. Elena Irwin died believing her husband would protect her daughter. She was wrong. But she was right about one thing. I didn't need his protection. I needed to protect myself from him. Charlotte broke free momentarily, lunging toward me. You vindictive little bitch. You ruined everything. Security restrained her again, but not before the cameras caught her designer shoe flying off, her perfect hair destroying itself, her true nature fully exposed. No, Charlotte, I said calmly. You ruined everything the day you convinced my father that lunch with you was more important than his daughter's life. I just declined to fix it. The board was huddling now, their emergency meeting beginning without Tyler. Charlotte's complete unraveling happened in full view of Seattle's elite and every major media outlet. As security tried to escort her out, she broke free one more time, her golden Versace gown tearing at the seam. You think you've won? She screamed at me, mascara streaming down her face in black rivers. You pathetic nobody! I made Tyler choose. Every single time. I made him choose me over you. The room went silent. Even Tyler looked stunned. Every emergency, every crisis, I planned them all. She laughed hysterically. The migraines when you had presentations, the anxiety attacks during your meetings. God, he was so easy to manipulate. Wave a little distress, shed a few tears, and he'd abandon you every single time. Charlotte, stop talking, Tyler said weakly. Why? It's over anyway. She spun to face him. You spineless fool! Your daughter was the only one keeping your company afloat. And you let me convince you to destroy her. The prenup I signed? It only pays out if we're married 5 years. We've been married 3. I get nothing. She pulled out her phone, waving it wildly. And these credit cards? Already declined. Your board froze the accounts 10 minutes ago. Robert Winters, her ex-husband, stepped forward. Charlotte, you need help. Shut up, Robert! She threw her clutch at him. You and your pathetic prenup lawyers. You all think you're so smart with your contracts and clauses. But you. She turned back to me, her face contorted with rage. You're worse than all of them. You had everything. His love, his company, his legacy. And you threw it away for what? Principles, I said simply. Dignity. Exactly that. Security finally managed to drag her out, but not before she screamed one last thing. Tyler, I never loved you. I just wanted the money. The ballroom doors closed on her final shriek, leaving 200 people in stunned silence. Tyler sat at his table, looking like he'd aged a decade in 10 minutes. Harrison Wells called the emergency board meeting to order right there in the ballroom, not even bothering to move to a private room. The humiliation would be complete and public. Tyler Irwin, Wells began, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years in business. The board has lost all confidence in your leadership. The loss of the waterfront contract alone constitutes gross negligence. Harrison, please. Furthermore, Wells continued, we've just learned that our lead architect, responsible for 80% of our successful projects, was driven to resign due to your systematic marginalization and the hostile work environment you allowed your wife to create. The other board members nodded. Jennifer Park, the CFO, stood up. I motion for an immediate vote of no confidence in Tyler Irwin as CEO of Irwin Holdings. Seconded, 3 voices said simultaneously. All in favor? Every hand raised except Tyler's. Motion carried. Tyler Irwin, you are hereby removed as CEO. Effective immediately. Wells turned to the room. James Rodriguez, our security director, will serve as interim CEO while we search for a permanent replacement. James, who'd been standing near the back, looked stunned but stepped forward. Additionally, Jennifer Park announced, the $4.5 million penalty for the failed waterfront deal will be paid from Tyler's personal assets as stipulated in his CEO contract's liability clause. You can't do this. Tyler stood, swaying slightly. This is my father's company. My name is on the building. Your father's company, Wells said coldly. Which you've just destroyed in a single evening. Your name will be removed within the week. A reporter shouted. Mr. Wells, what about Caroline Irwin? Wells looked at me with genuine regret. Miss Irwin, the board formally apologizes for failing to protect you. If you would consider staying. No, I said firmly. That bridge burned when my father chose lunch. The vote was done. The company Tyler had inherited, coasted on, and claimed credit for, was no longer his. Tyler caught up to me in the parking garage, his designer shoes slapping against concrete as he ran. Marcus stepped protectively closer, but I held up my hand. Caroline, wait, please! I turned slowly, leaning heavily on my cane. What could you possibly have to say now? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He was crying now, ugly sobs that echoed off the concrete walls. Charlotte manipulated me. She poisoned me against you. I see that now. You see it now? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. When it's cost you everything? I'll divorce her immediately. I'll make you CEO. I'll sign everything over to you. He dropped to his knees on the oil-stained garage floor, his tuxedo ruined. You're my daughter, my only family. Please don't leave me. I was your daughter when I called from the ER, too. I made a mistake. No, Dad. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. Choosing lunch while your daughter is dying? That's a choice. One you can't take back. He grabbed at my dress. You can't do this. I'm your father. Marcus stepped forward then, gently but firmly removing Tyler's hands. Mr. Irwin. Caroline has made her position clear. She's my daughter. Tyler screamed. She owes me. I owe you nothing. I interrupted. Mom's the one who built the company's reputation with her designs. I'm the one who maintained it. You are just a name on the door. Caroline, please. Goodbye, Tyler. Marcus helped me into the car. As we drove away, I could see Tyler in the rearview mirror. Still on his knees in the parking garage, surrounded by the debris of his choices. Are you okay? Marcus asked gently. I will be, I said. And for the first time in years I meant it. Monday morning, 3 days later, November 19th, Marcus's law firm conference room. Tyler sat across from me, flanked by 2 lawyers who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I hadn't seen him since the garage. He looked hollow, unshaven, his usual commanding presence reduced to nothing. Marcus slid the first document across the table. Restraining order. Mr. Irwin is prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Caroline, her new workplace, or her residence. Tyler's lawyer reviewed it, whispered something. Tyler signed without protest. Next, the intellectual property claim. Marcus continued. Caroline is seeking compensation for 5 years of unattributed work based on industry standards for architectural design plus damages for career suppression. We're seeking $3 million. $3 million? Tyler's lawyer sputtered. Would you prefer we go to court? Marcus asked mildly. The evidence is comprehensive. Every email, every design, every instance of credit theft. The media would love a follow-up story. Tyler signed. Finally, Marcus said, the criminal complaint for reckless endangerment. Officer Hayes has filed charges based on Tyler's failure to provide aid during a medical emergency. That won't stick, Tyler's lawyer protested. Perhaps not, Marcus agreed. But the trial will be public. Every detail will be reported. Is that what you want, Mr. Owen? Tyler looked at me then, truly looked at me. What do you want, Caroline? Really want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences, I said. I want you to remember that you chose Charlotte over me when I was dying. And I want to never have to remind you again. He signed the last document with shaking hands. The payments will be structured over 2 years, Marcus explained. Any missed payment voids the restraining order restrictions and triggers immediate full payment plus penalties. Tyler stood to leave, then paused. Caroline. Just don't, I said. He left without another word. Within 2 hours of the gala, #DadChoseLunch was trending #1 on Twitter. Someone had live-streamed Officer Hayes' confrontation, and the video had 3 million views by morning. Seattle Business Journal ran the headline, "Billionaire's lunch break costs him everything." Forbes picked it up. How Tyler Owen lost $15 million in 11 words. Even the New York Times covered it. A text message that destroyed a dynasty. The memes were brutal but accurate. Screenshots of Tyler's "call an Uber" text became the template for every joke about terrible parents. Charlotte's meltdown was auto-tuned into a viral song that hit 1 million views in 12 hours. But the real explosion came when investigative journalist Sarah Chin published her deep dive into Tyler's history. She'd found 3 former employees who'd quit after Tyler claimed credit for their work. 2 contractors who'd been stiffed on payments while Tyler bought Charlotte jewelry. A pattern of exploitation going back years. My LinkedIn exploded with messages, job offers, interview requests, speaking engagements. Meridian Development publicly announced my hiring with a full-page ad in the Seattle Times. Welcome, Caroline Owen. Where talent is recognized, not stolen. Tyler tried to do damage control, releasing a statement through his lawyer about family misunderstandings and media exaggeration. It backfired spectacularly when someone leaked the security footage of Charlotte admitting to faking every crisis. Charlotte herself disappeared from social media after her Instagram was flooded with comments. Her last post, a selfie from the gala in that golden dress, had 40,000 comments, none of them kind. The best part? Waterfront Investment Group announced they'd hired me as a consultant for their new project. David Chen's statement was brief. We invest in integrity. Caroline Irwin has proven hers. By Wednesday, 3 more of Tyler's clients had pulled their contracts. By Friday, Irwin Holdings stock had dropped 40%. The empire built on my mother's talent and my sweat was crumbling, and the whole world was watching. 3 months later, February 2026. My new corner office at Meridian Development faced Elliott Bay, sunlight streaming through windows I'd actually chosen myself. No more hiding in shadows while others claimed the view. The nameplate on my door read, Caroline Irwin, Senior Partner and Lead Architect. Below it, a small framed quote from my mother. Build your own foundation, sweetheart. Never let anyone else hold your blueprints. My team actually looked me in the eye during meetings. They used my name when presenting my ideas. When the CEO introduced me to clients, he said, "This is Caroline, the genius behind our new waterfront project." The $50 million project was mine to lead, with full creative control and an equity stake that would set me up for life. My designs, my vision, my name on the final plans. Caroline. My assistant knocked. Your 3 o'clock is here. Send them in. But instead of a client, Marcus walked in with a smile and a bottle of champagne. Thought we should celebrate, he said. The final payment from Tyler cleared today. All 3 million, every penny. He sold the house to make the last payment. I should have felt guilty. I didn't. Also, Marcus continued, popping the cork, Officer Hayes wanted me to tell you that the community service portion of Tyler's sentence starts next week. He'll be teaching workplace safety at the community center, specifically the importance of emergency contacts. Poetic justice. I murmured. Your mother would be proud, Marcus said, raising his glass. You didn't just survive him, Caroline. You thrived despite him. We clinked glasses, and I looked out at the bay where my next project would rise. My design, my name, my future. For the first time in my life, I wasn't Tyler Irwin's daughter. I was just Caroline. And that was more than enough. Charlotte Winters, no longer Irwin, became Seattle's cautionary tale. The divorce was finalized in record time, Tyler's lawyer successfully arguing fraud and manipulation. The prenup she'd mentioned at the gala held firm. 3 years meant zero payout. Marcus kept me updated through his network. Charlotte had tried to land another wealthy husband, showing up at charity galas and country clubs, but her meltdown video had been seen by everyone who mattered. Robert, her second ex-husband, had helpfully shared their divorce records with anyone who asked. By January, she was working at a RE/MAX office in Tacoma, trying to sell condos. Her Instagram, once filled with designer goods and 5-star restaurants, went dark after someone posted a photo of her showing a studio apartment in a building Tyler used to own. The final indignity came when she tried to sell her story to a tabloid. My side, how Caroline Irwin destroyed my marriage. But the journalist fact-checked her claims, found the contradictions, and instead published an article about gold diggers who target vulnerable widowers. Her last public appearance was at a court hearing where Tyler sued her for fraud, specifically the $20,000 in charges she'd made on company cards for her fake emergencies. She showed up in the same golden Versace from the gala, now obviously altered and worn. The judge ordered full restitution plus damages. Last I heard, she was living in a studio apartment in Renton, the kind where you can see the kitchen from the bed, the same kind of place she'd once mocked me for considering when I was starting out. Karma, it seems, keeps excellent records. Tyler's fall from grace was complete by spring. The man who once commanded rooms now couldn't get a table at restaurants where he'd been a regular. His country club membership was quietly revoked after 3 members complained about reputational concerns. He'd kept 20% of his net worth after the legal settlements, penalties, and forced asset sales. Enough to live on, not enough to matter in the circles he'd once dominated. He moved from his Medina mansion to a 2-bedroom apartment in Bellevue. Nice by normal standards, humiliating by his. The drinking started shortly after. Marcus heard from former colleagues that Tyler had been escorted out of 2 industry events for being intoxicated. His LinkedIn became a stream of increasingly desperate posts about new ventures and consulting opportunities that never materialized. He sent me letters, actual handwritten letters, since electronic communication was prohibited. I returned them unopened, but Marcus read them for legal purposes. They evolved from angry blame to self-pity to desperate bargaining, to, finally, what might have been genuine remorse. The last one simply said, I chose wrong. I'm sorry. In May, he entered rehab. Not the luxury kind Charlotte would have demanded, but a state-funded program at Harborview, the same hospital where I'd nearly died. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. His therapist reached out once, asking if I'd consider family counseling. I declined. Some bridges, once burned, are meant to stay ash. Tyler Irwin, who'd inherited an empire and claimed credit for its growth, was now just another cautionary tale about choosing ego over family, lunch over love. August 2026. Tyler had been sober for 90 days when his therapist called again. This time, Marcus advised me to listen. He's not asking for forgiveness, Dr. Patricia Kelman explained. He's asking for the chance to earn it. There's a difference. I met her at her office, neutral ground. Tyler's letter was waiting, sealed with, "Please read," written in shaky handwriting. Inside, 3 pages of accountability. No excuses about Charlotte's manipulation, no blame shifting, just an acknowledgement of every choice he'd made and its consequences. At the bottom, a proposal. I want to be your father. Not your boss, not your burden, just your father. If you'll let me try. These are my promises. Weekly therapy for 1 year minimum. No business discussions ever. Meetings only in public places with witnesses present. No requests for money, favors, or forgiveness you're not ready to give. I will earn my place in your life or accept my absence from it. I sat with that letter for a week, talked to my own therapist, called my mother's sister, who said, Elena would want you to do what brings you peace, not what looks right. Finally, I sent my response through Marcus. 1 coffee, public place, 30 minutes. Bring your therapist. If you mention Owen Holdings, Charlotte, or ask for anything beyond this meeting, we're done forever. He agreed immediately. We met at a Starbucks in Fremont, far from both our worlds. He looked older, but clearer. The bloat of alcohol gone. The arrogance replaced by something I'd never seen before, humility. Hi, Caroline, he said simply. Hello, Tyler, I replied. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a reunion. It was just a beginning. The first honest one we'd ever had. 1 year later, I stood before 200 young architects at the University of Washington, teaching a master class on professional integrity. My mother's photo sat on the podium beside my laptop, the same photo from my old office, now part of every presentation I gave. Your talent is yours, I told them. Document everything. Set boundaries early, and never, ever let anyone make you small so they can feel big. A young woman raised her hand. What if it's family taking credit? How do you stand up to that? I smiled, thinking of how far I'd come. Family doesn't entitle anyone to your work or your worth. Blood relation isn't a license to exploit. My foundation, the Elena Irwin Fund for Workplace Equality, had helped 17 young professionals escape similar situations. Each one reminded me why I'd made my choice that day in the hospital. My phone buzzed with a text from my boyfriend, James, the security director who'd become interim CEO, then a friend, then more. Dinner at 7, that new place by the water. I responded quickly. Be there. Promise. And I would be, because I'd learned to prioritize the people who prioritized me, to show up for those who'd show up for me. My mother's photo caught the afternoon light, and I could almost hear her voice. You built your own foundation, sweetheart. Yes, Mom. I finally did. Looking back now, I realized that car accident didn't just break my ribs. It broke the last chains holding me to a toxic legacy. Tyler choosing lunch wasn't the betrayal. It was the revelation of betrayals that had been happening for years. Some people ask if I regret letting the waterfront deal die. I tell them, I regret staying silent for 5 years while my father sold my talent as his own. I regret every birthday I let Charlotte ruin. I regret not believing I was worth more than their scraps. But that November day when Tyler chose lunch? That's the day I chose myself. And I've chosen myself every day since. Success tastes different when it has your name on it. Love feels different when it comes from people who'd leave any lunch to be there for your emergency. Family means something different when it's built on respect, not just blood. Your worth isn't determined by those who refuse to see it. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to appreciate it. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to save people from the consequences of their own choices. He chose lunch. I chose my life. And I'd choose it again. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you or someone you know is being taken for granted by toxic family members, please share this video so they know it's okay to choose yourself. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose yourself over a toxic relationship? Tell me what you think in the comments. I really want to know. Until next time, remember, you deserve to be someone's priority, not their option.